you, you. Good morning, good morning to you. We only have the short time today. First of all, good morning and welcome to Daring Dialogues. I'm your host today, Shantae Charles. We only have a short time these Thursdays because of my clients. So we want to hop right into the topic. Today we are talking about and reading from the Spirit of Justice. I'm going to read from the book probably for about 15 minutes, and then we're going to hop into some conversation. And because of the shortness of time, I want to make sure that I hop right into the reading today. Dr. Jamar Tisby is talking today about beware of historical appropriation. Beware of historical appropriation and distinguishing between resistance, advocacy, and activism. And I might want to add another word in here, amplification. Someone explained to me the other day, they said, I noticed that you share a lot of other people's or other content creators' information or posts. And I said, yeah, I could spend some time, writing about some of these concepts. But if I see someone who has already done a very good job of writing about a concept, or somebody has written a book about it already, or somebody has created visuals or memes around it that simplifies the concept for people, as an educator, I'm going to share that resource with you. To me, that's just a natural outflow of what I do already as an educator. And they said, I'm so glad that you do that and that you don't just feel like you have to write everything or you have to put everything out there yourself. I'm so glad that you share resources from other people who are already doing the work. You're such a great amplifier. And I said, huh. So I went and looked it up, and because we always hear people talk about resistance, we hear people talk about being an advocate for something, right? I know that I am a artivist in my profession. As a visual artist, I use my visual art and I center issues of justice and race and women and all of that. So I am a artivist when it comes to my visual artwork. But I never really hear people talk about the amplifiers that we have among us as well. And so if you are an amplifier today, we see you. If you're a person that amplifies the voices of other people, if you're a person that doesn't feel like all the attention has to be on you, on your page, and you share the joy, and you share the messages, we see you as well. So I just wanted to share that. I was like, thank you. Got another word there, amplifier. So today, again, the topic is beware of historical appropriation and distinguishing between resistance, advocacy, and activism. And I'm already 3 minutes into my time, so let me start reading. If you're just coming in, I'm reading from this book. Dr. Jamar Tisby, he's a historian and a theological scholar. He combines both of his experiences to share with us this work, The Spirit of Justice, True Stories of Faith, Race, and Resistance. In describing how the spirit of justice manifested in various eras in individuals, it is helpful to distinguish between resistance, advocacy, and activism. Usually, can't get to that yet. Good morning. Let me backtrack. Let me go back. Beware of historical appropriation. Wrong page. Every year at the end of October, children and adults alike cover their faces in paint, search the internet and pop-up stores for outfits they wouldn't wear at any other time of year, and pretend to be someone or something else for Halloween. In years past, people thought nothing of smearing their faces with brown or black paint to pretend to be a Native American or a person of African descent. They wore clothes, teeth, noses, and makeup in garish caricatures of actual people and cultures. These costumes often played on racist tropes and perpetrated harmful prejudice. Insensitive choices for Halloween costumes is just one example of cultural appropriation. Cultural appropriation means claiming aspects of a culture other than your own without offering the respect, dignity, and understanding due to the people who inhabit that culture and its practices. Just as there is cultural appropriation, there can also be historical appropriation. The attempt to claim the historic, heroic actions of the few to downplay the atrocious actions of the many. As cultural appropriation selectively adopts the most visible or celebrated parts of a culture, one cannot rightfully claim historical appropriation involves picking and choosing which historical figures and events to claim in order to create a more valorous version of the past. You try to make the struggles and triumphs of people who fought against racism and white supremacy your own, even if your community had no part in the resistance. In fact, historical appropriation is most tempting to those whose political, theological, and economic lineage not only ignored racial justice, but actively supported racist beliefs and actions. Many Christians like to claim John Newton, the British pastor and songwriter who wrote the hymn Amazing Grace, as part of their spiritual heritage. Newton was a slave ship captain who became a Christian and eventually became an outspoken abolitionist. Christians today point to Newton as an example of how Christianity redeems and reforms individuals and serves as a force for racial justice. Yet, they fail to acknowledge the two realities. First, Newton remained a slave ship captain for years after his conversion. He did not immediately see his profession as a contradiction to his faith because it was far more socially acceptable for him to be a pro slavery Christian than an anti slavery one. Second, people who claim Newton today fail to follow his example. After he eventually changed his views on slavery, he was not quiet about it. Newton wrote an entire public pamphlet in support of changing laws to promote racial justice and abolish the slave trade. Historical appropriation occurs when you celebrate John Newton's redemption arc of moving from slave ship captain to abolitionist and yet refuse to emulate his public support of racially progressive policies. Oftentimes, people who point to historical actors such as John Newton are trying to claim that the preponderance of Christian history in the United States shows Christians resisting racism. Yet, while historical record reveals that many Black Christians and others exploited groups stood for justice, most white Christians demonstrated compromise and complicity with racism. Those who courageously confronted injustice were the exception, not the norm. All right, let's see. Good morning to Pastor Ben. Good morning to Lady Stephanie. Good morning to Lady Shantae. Hector, my forehead is big because God created it, and having a big forehead is actually a sign of beauty. Tony Y, you say, I've been blocked. How sad. I serve. I just God. You can't have been blocked because I'm reading your comments. So that is a lie. You have not been blocked. Return money that was sent accidentally. $500. You can't possibly ignore that. For the second time, no one is ignoring you. I've already told you what to do. We never receive money from you. That's number one. And number two, if you're accusing us of something, we've already given you our email. I'm going to give it to you again live so you can hear it. Life Nation KC, all one word, at gmail.com. Coming onto my live and trying to accuse me of something I have not done isn't going to work. So you've already been given how to contact us if you actually want to resolve this. There are other ministries that have our same name. So maybe you sent the money to them, but you did not send it to us. So we don't have anything to be ashamed of because we never received your money. And at this point, it's actually harassment because we're telling you how to reach out and contact us if you feel that we have done something wrong to you. At this point, you're actually doing something wrong to us because you're coming on our platform, you're harassing us, and you're accusing us of something we have not done. Now I'm going to hold space for you to respond to what I just said. I'm waiting. Again, the email is lifenationkc@gmail.com. So if you want your issue resolved, which we actually have no part in, but if you're saying we did something, we need to see evidence of what we supposedly did to you. Oh, okay. Now you have left the platform. So at this point, I'm going to officially block Tony Y because Tony Y is coming on my screen. Tony Y is accusing me of something I haven't done. Tony Y is not responding when she is confronted with what she's saying online. And Tony Y now has my email address. So if there is an actual real problem and not someone trolling on the other end, it can be resolved. Okay? All right. Back to my regularly scheduled broadcasts. Because what you're not going to do is you're not going to continue to harass me. All right. In a book like The Spirit of Justice, which discusses people who struggled against racism, it would be easy to say, see, Christians aren't all bad. Sure, some of them were racist, but most were decent folks who did the right thing. Let's just celebrate them and not focus so much on a few bad apples. Such sentiments ignore the host of Christians who looked the other way or actively participated in racism. Do not claim the historical legacy of anti-racists if you're not willing to claim and contend with the legacy of racists in your own tradition. The best way to celebrate the struggle of those who came before us is to acknowledge the truth, learn from it, and act on it. If your Christian tradition has historically supported slavery, segregation, and racism, then admit it. You cannot claim the anti-racist actions of historical actors if you refuse to acknowledge the many others in your faith tradition who were the source of racist ideas and behaviors. Beware of historical appropriation. Now we're going to get to the second part. Distinguishing between resistance, advocacy, and activism. In describing how the spirit of justice manifested in various eras and individuals, it is helpful to distinguish between resistance, advocacy, and activism. Usually, when we think of resistance, we think of conspicuous endeavors such as marches or sit-ins. In the spirit of justice, we'll look at a variety of anti-racist actions that range from starting schools to boycotting segregated businesses to writing books. Actions of any kind, from the everyday to the extraordinary, can be motivated by the spirit of justice, and they all deserve consideration. Resistance is defined as any action taken for spiritual, emotional, and physical survival, and in pursuit of joy and thriving. Acts of resistance may not be consciously conceived of as such, and they may not be directed at a particular person, policy, or institution. These works may not change the mind or practices of the oppressor, but they help to sustain the oppressed. Resistance often takes the form of the commonplace and the quotidian. Examples of resistance include raising a family, starting a business, going to therapy, attending a spiritual event. Absent of context, such actions seem unremarkable. But since racism is so pervasive, widespread, and varied, there are always conditions that must be taken into account. In a white supremacist society, any action or attitude that asserts your full humanity despite ongoing attempts at dehumanization can be considered resistance. Advocacy is an intentional action taken in support of a specific justice cause. It often includes efforts to increase awareness about an issue through verbal or written communication. Advocacy can take the form of writing or sharing articles, using a hashtag to amplify a movement, or having conversations to build bridges of understanding. Advocacy often involves supporting individuals and organizations that are dedicated to a justice cause full time. Advocacy is the intentional effort to raise awareness about a particular cause in the hope of encouraging positive change. Activism involves actions that purposely and directly challenge injustice to change opinions, policies, and practices. Activism is most often public and visible, such as marches, sit ins, and the blocking of highways. Activism is designed to draw attention to an injustice and usually entails some form of demonstration designed to provoke a response, like a march or a boycott. Thus, activists put themselves at risk, sometimes of retribution, whether through imprisonment, loss of employment, or even death. An activist dedicates a significant portion of their time and energy, and often money, to bringing about justice in a particular area. They may work for a nonprofit or similar entity. Not all people who experience oppression engage in activism, but many do, even briefly at some point in their lives. The lines between resistance, advocacy, and activism are not always clear. When an enslaved person broke custom and learned to read, was that an act of resistance or activism? Would starting a Black owned newspaper in defiance of the lies promulgated by white outlets constitute advocacy or activism, or both? These distinctions are not meant to neatly categorize what people did to protest injustice. Rather, they help us understand why such varied acts deserve attention. The spirit of justice takes many forms. And I'm going to stop here for today. Next time, we'll talk about white lash and counting the costs. All right. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go to our talk back at this time. All right. And we seem to have lots of COINTELPRO activity trying to happen as we are doing. All right. So we are now in our talk back section. Pastor Ben, we have got about 15 minutes, give or take. So once you see that link, you can add yourself. Let's see if we have any other comments here. Hello, Brian. Hello, Adil. All right. Again, we're talking about the spirit of justice, and we're getting into the meat of his work. We're not quite there. We're still sort of in the introduction. And as he said, sometimes you have actions of resistance, sometimes you have actions of advocacy, sometimes you have actions of activism, and some of those things blend between each other. All right. Hello, hello, hello. Can you hear us and can you see us? I can't hear and see you quite yet. All right, I can see you. Can you hear us? Can you hear us? I can see you, but I cannot hear you. Okay, I can see you, and I'm still waiting
I
for
can hear
sound.
you.
I'm waiting for sound to connect.
Hello.
I can hear you. Your
Okay.
your video is a little bit choppy, but it's okay as long as I can hear you. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. Now that I have given further directives, I'm not going to mention that person again on my platform. They have the information to contact me if they want to. Moving right
Yeah,
along.
but that's harassment.
It is. Yep.
You- You've given them information more than once,
Mhm.
and they continue to do this,
Mhm.
which kind
which
of
kind
makes
of
a
makes a person
believe
believe
that
that
that's
that's
exactly
exactly
what
what
they're
they're
after,
after,
harassment,
harassment,
Mhm.
and to
to
defame
defame
you.
you.
And to derail my broadcast, which we're not doing.
Yes,
Yes.
no, that ain't happening. But today's
Today's
topic,
topic,
I actually had to
had to
go
go
into
into
that a
that a
little
little
bit
bit
this
this
morning
morning
Okay.
on
on
social
social
media
media
Okay.
because the
because the
now
now
deceased
deceased
guy
guy
that
that
they're
they're
trying to
trying to
make a
make a
god,
god,
Mhm. Mhm.
Obama made
made
truthful
truthful
statements,
statements,
Mhm.
and they're
and they're
going
going
after
after
Obama
Obama,
and claiming
claiming
that
that
this
this
guy
guy
taught the
taught the
truth
truth,
and
that
he
he
was a
was a
Christian.
Christian.
Really?
Now
Now
you
you
know
know
me,
me,
Shantae.
Shantae.
You know me.
I mean, I would say he used Bible verses. He used Bible verses, yes. But his
Yes.
but his God was whiteness. That was his God.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the God of a lot of people. And we're just finding that out how many people's God is actually whiteness.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not
And I
surprising to us because we've been talking about this since 2012, and we've been telling people that a lot of the people that you think are Christians are actually not Christians. They actually use Bible verses, and their God is whiteness. And we're just seeing that in real time.
yeah. And I actually went there with what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
And then I
And
even
then
went
I even
further. I
went
said,
further.
let's
I said, let's
remember,
remember,
Satan used
Satan used
scripture
scripture
Mm-hmm.
when he
when
tempted
he tempted
Christ.
Christ.
Mm-hmm.
I said,
I
remember
said,
he
remember
said,
he
it
said,
is
it is
written,
written,
He did.
and Christ
and
came
Christ
back,
came
it is
back, it is
also
also
written.
written.
Mm-hmm.
I said,
I
so
said, so
did
did
Satan
Satan
lie
lie
in the way he did and in the way
and
he
in the way he
didn't?
didn't?
He quoted
He quoted
scripture,
scripture,
but he
but
did
he
it out
did it
of
out of
context.
context.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
And that's
exactly what we
exactly
see.
what
They're
we see.
taking
They're taking
scripture
scripture
Mm-hmm.
and they're using
and
it
using
out
it
of
out of
context
context
Which lets us
to
know,
to
push what
push
they
what
want.
they want.
which lets us know, even if Jesus had to tell dating it, if
Hmm.
Hmm.
Jesus had to do that, what makes us think we don't have to?
Hmm.
Hmm.
If Jesus had to say, yes, that is true, but here's what it also says. In other words, I know you're trying to you. If Jesus experienced that, what makes us think that we're not experiencing those same kinds of people right now
Exactly.
Exactly.
who want to use scripture to get you to bow down to an agenda that is anti-human and anti-God?
Hmm.
Hmm.
And the reality is, if you don't know scripture, you're going to bow down to it. You're going to bow down to their agenda because you're going to say, well, the Bible does say, but not in the context and way in which they're using it.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And people hate when you know that the context in which they're using it is wrong. They just want you to go along with it, and we just don't do that here. We don't. We're not going to. Oh well. All right. So talk to me because a lot of people don't think that what people are doing online is actually a part of the resistance. What do you think about that? Did you hear my last question there, Pastor Ben?
Out and started Connect.
I said, Did you hear my last question?
No.
I said
No,
a lot of people don't think that online messaging is a part of advocacy. What would you say to that?
it is. It's a
It's a
way
way
of
of
reaching
reaching
people.
people.
Yeah.
Online,
Online,
you're
you're
reaching
reaching
more
more
people
people
than
than
you
you
could
could
if you
if you
went
went
door to
door to
door or
door or
try
try
to
to
do
do
it
it
in
in
person.
person.
That's
That's
like
like
ministry.
ministry.
How
I'm
many
gonna
Many
people are
people are
reached
reached
by
by
ministry
ministry
yeah,
on live?
live.
I'm gonna see the data on that. How many people are actually online? People, number of people online, number of people using, let me say, using social media. Let's get an actual number. It says as of July 2025, there are 5.41 billion social media users worldwide, representing 65.7% of the global population, with the number of users growing by 4.7% over the past year. This growth means an average of 660,000 new users are joining social media daily. Facebook remains the most used platform with 3.07 billion monthly active users. So, a
Hmm.
person who's telling you that your social media presence doesn't matter, a person who's telling
Right.
you
Right?
that your voice on social media doesn't make a difference or that it's not real is not living in reality.
No.
And it's
They're
not
just
to
voicing
Voicing
their
say,
their
opinion.
opinion.
and obviously it's not to say that you shouldn't build out physical spaces and places,
Hmm.
but the reality is you have a greater what's the word Jesus would probably use? You have a greater net if you're
Hmm.
using social media platforms. And a lot of people will
Yeah.
say, well, Facebook is kind of toxic. Why do you stay on Facebook? Because most of us, to be honest, most of us would probably leave Facebook altogether. But they just pointed out the fact that Facebook remains the most used platform out of all of them, with over 3 billion people on the platform. So
Hmm.
you have to weigh that with your message, you have to weigh that with your goals, right, for sharing information online. And then you also have to say, what do I want to share and how am I going to share it in a way that it gets the message to people without getting lost in the algorithm? Because that's the other part.
Here's the thing
Here's the
from
thing from
experience.
experience.
There's been
There's
quite
been
a
quite a
few
few
uh,
um,
envelopians
envelopians
Mm-hmm.
whose
whose
eyes were
eyes were
open
open
because
because
they ran
they
across
ran across
something that I
something that
said
I
or was a
said or was a
conversation I was
conversation I
having
was
with
having with
somebody,
Mm-hmm.
somebody,
Mm-hmm.
and they
and
came
they
at
came
me,
at
and I
me,
gave
and I
them
gave them
facts.
facts.
Mm-hmm.
Many of them
Many of
came
them
back
came
and
back and
when once they
once they
checked out the
checked out the
facts,
facts,
Mm-hmm.
they came back
came
and
back
asked
and
me,
asked me for more information.
Mm-hmm.
At, at that point, this was back in the day when these old white women were running white nonsense roundup.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So I
so I
referred them to
referred
that
them to that
page,
Yep.
page,
white
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 nonsense
nonsense
roundup,
roundup,
And their
and they
and
came
they
back and
came back
said
and
thank
said
you.
thank
and
you.
their information is still up, but I don't think that they're doing
Hmm.
as
Hmm.
much advocacy on the Facebook page. But I think their resource pages are
Right.
still up.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
are.
they are.
They are.
They are.
So
So,
and
and
that
that
shows you
shows you
that
that
was
was so.
social media.
Mm-hmm. And the
So
real
conversation.
and the reality is, if someone sees you or doesn't see you as human, there's not a lot of places you can go with that. because they either see you as human or they don't, right? But if the person sees you as a human being,
Mhm.
but you
Mhm.
all have some differences of agreement because of how they've been raised or because they simply don't know, right? It's just
Mhm.
ignorance. They
Mhm.
don't know. It's not that they hate you, they just don't know. Then
Right.
you have an opportunity to bring some light to and some knowledge to that person. The main issue
Mhm.
with
Mhm.
social media is you don't necessarily, you're not able to judge that right away. When someone comes into your space, right? Like this person came into our space earlier and they just immediately typed racist messages. They weren't even in here 5 seconds to even hear what we had to say. They just saw two black people talking on screen and decided it was racist. Like, that's wild, okay? But that's where we are in our society.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That was wild, but that is literally where we are in our society. That's exactly what black people are talking about. Because no one has said anything racist.
Mhm.
But you saw two black people on screen and you just decided that we were going to say something about you that you didn't like. And so
Dog.
these are the things that we're confronting as we start looking at the spirit of justice. He's going to be sharing with us important stories of people who stood up for what was right, who resisted in the ways that they could, who advocated in the ways that they could, and what we can learn from them. One of the main things, and um, I appreciate so much Dr. King's writings and messages. We've read through his entire books, three of them, on this platform over the years. And I appreciate his work because he shows us how to get into our message, how to maintain our focus, how to keep going despite people's misunderstanding of your message, and how to move through that. Not to say that he didn't have
Mhm.
Mhm.
doubts, not to say that he didn't have fears, not to say that there weren't days when he was like, what am I doing? Is this even worth it? His friends attest to that. That there were days when he actually, felt that way. The unvarnished Martin. But he's given us some blueprints on how to stay the course. And that's what I appreciate most about his work. Final thoughts.
Ooh.
Whew.
It's time to wake up.
It's time to wake up.
Well, it's been time to
Well, it's
wake
been
up.
time to
It's
wake
well
up. It's
past
well
that.
past that.
But the things
But the
is,
things is,
I think,
I
I
think,
think
I think
this
this
event that
event that
happened,
happened,
Mm-hmm.
the unaliving of
Charlie
Charlie
Kirk,
Kirk,
Mm-hmm.
that
that
just
just
blew
blew
things
things
wide
wide
open
open
Mm-hmm.
for a
for a
conversation to
conversation to
be
be
had.
had.
Yeah.
The
The
problem
problem
is
is
that
that
those
those
that
that
are
are
following
following
false
false
Christianity,
Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
they
they
seem to be
seem to be
trying to
trying to
dig
dig
deeper
deeper
Yeah.
and
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 Yeah.
and
and
make him
make him
some
some
type of
type
a
of a
Christ,
Christ,
even comparing him to
comparing him to
Dr.
Dr.
King,
King,
which
which
there's
there's
no
no
comparison.
comparison.
Well, he said he was actually going to go on a campaign to destroy his memory and his legacy. So I definitely know in his life he would not have wanted to be compared to Dr. King at all.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So that just kind of shows you how skewed even the people who say they're following him are, because he wouldn't have wanted that at all. Final thing I will say is we have a choice in this moment to let what we see not be something that we turn away from. I've had a couple of people in my social media space talk about how afraid they are to go now in certain spaces because they either see the flag at half mast for this person, or they see people with posters when they've gone into certain businesses now. people with posters in memoriam of him. And so, what that is signaling to people is signaling that this is not a safe space. Businesses that
Right.
they were going in before, now that they have these things up, it's signaling to them this is not a safe space. And one of the things I said to them is, let this time reveal to you what you need to see.
Mm-hmm.
Do
Mm-hmm.
not look away. People are showing you better than they can tell you where their heart lies when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
all of humanity. They're just making it plain what they actually believe in. And so, as Dr. Maya said, and we're closing, when people show you who they are the first time, believe them. Don't look away. Don't excuse it. Don't say maybe they didn't mean. No, they mean exactly what you are seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Your responsibility is to govern yourself accordingly. Your responsibility is to adjust your path. Your responsibility is to adjust your dollar distribution. That's your responsibility. And with that, I want to say this has been another episode of Daring Dialogues, and I've been your host today, Shantae Charles. I do want to thank you for your time and attention. I apologize for the disruption on the platform earlier, but that person has been redirected into how to actually solve their problem. We hope to hear from them so that we can get their problem solved. Thank you again for your time and attention. Remember, light is the most daring opposition to darkness. So continue to go out and be what?
Light.
Light. Take care, everyone, and be well.